Hey everyone, ASUS sent me this ROG Strix Z690-E gaming Wi-Fi motherboard for my review, and let me just tell you that this motherboard is a beast of a gaming motherboard, and it's got lots of premium features that I will talk about in this video, so let's get right into it. First, let's go everything you get in the box. So this is the motherboard, pull this aside for now. So here are all the accessories. And first here is something unique to this motherboard that you're not gonna get with most other motherboards. This is the ROG Hyper M.2 card, and it can accommodate two M.2 NVMe drives in here. And let me tell you, it's quite hefty and it's bigger than I thought it would be. It's got a huge heatsink to keep your M.2 drives cool while they're operating, and this is the back of it. And let me go ahead and remove the heatsink so you can see what's under. And here is the inside of the ROG Hyper M.2 card. As you can see here, this is where you would put your two M.2 NVMe drives. And the interesting thing is that it has heat pads both on the bottom as well as the top of the NVMe drive. So that's really gonna help with cooling down your M.2 NVMe drives. And again, this is a premium feature of this motherboard. You're not gonna see this with a lot of other motherboards, and this is where a little bit of that extra cost comes in. Okay, and there's just layers and layers of compartments here. In this compartment, looks like we have a little short lanyard here that just says ROG. You have your support DVD, as well as a cool little thank you card. Some very cool ROG stickers that you can put on your computer case if you'd like to. And finally, the motherboard manual. Okay, now let's take a look at the next compartment. So here we have the ROG graphics card holder, and this helps a lot to prevent GPU sag when a large graphics card is in your computer case. Then we have your SATA cables for your traditional drives. Looks like there is one right angle and two straight SATA cables. You get some cable ties to help with that cable management on your computer case. And you get some screws and pads for your M.2 sockets on your motherboard. And finally, here is the Wi-Fi 6E antenna that goes along with your motherboard. As you can see, you can put it flat on your desk and adjust this antenna pole to get the best Wi-Fi signal. Now let's move on to the motherboard itself, and here it is. Wow, and the camera probably doesn't do this motherboard justice. This thing looks amazing. I mean, it looks like an engineered piece of art. So this motherboard is an amazing piece of hardware that's perfect for both gamers and enthusiasts alike. The motherboard is packed with lots of great features and a plethora of connectivity options. So let's talk about some of those features. The ASUS ROG Strix Z690-E gaming Wi-Fi motherboard features PCIe 5.0 support, which means that you'll be able to take advantage of the latest and greatest hardware. It also supports the latest DDR5 memory to boost your performance even more. And note that this motherboard does not support the older DDR4 memory, so keep that in mind when buying this motherboard. This motherboard uses the LGA 1700 CPU socket. With the initial release of the motherboard, it supported 12th gen Intel processors, such as this Intel Core i9-12900K. However, updating this motherboard to the latest BIOS update adds support for the latest Intel 13th gen processors. That means you can spend a little bit more money and get a 13900K CPU installed on this motherboard if you so desire. One important thing to note about this motherboard is that it does have the BIOS flashback feature, and it's this little button right here along with this USB port. This is BIOS. That means that you can update the BIOS to the latest version by simply dropping the latest BIOS file onto a USB stick and then plugging it directly onto this special USB port that's labeled as BIOS, and then pressing the BIOS flashback button. The best thing of all is that this can be performed without having any memory or a CPU installed on the motherboard. Another great feature of this motherboard is that it has 18+1 power stages, which means it can handle even the most demanding CPUs with ease. One of the things that sets the ASUS ROG Strix Z690-E gaming Wi-Fi motherboard apart from other motherboards is its Wi-Fi 6E support, as well as Bluetooth 5.2 that's built in right into this motherboard, so you don't need to buy anything extra. This means that you'll be able to take advantage of the latest and greatest wireless technology, which is perfect for gamers who demand low latency and high speeds. So now let's take a look at the back I/O panel to see all your connectivity options with this motherboard. So if you install an Intel processor that has built-in graphics, then you're going to be able to use these video ports right here, which is a display port on top and then an HDMI port. You also get 4 USB 2.0 ports, which are these black USB ports right here. You get a button on the outside here to clear CMOS, which is really helpful in some situations. Of course, you get the BIOS flashback feature, which I mentioned earlier. You get these 4 blue USB 3.2 Gen 1 ports, as well as 3 USB 3.2 Gen 2 ports. You get 2 Type A's, which is these red ones here, and then you get 1 Type C port. And to round off the USB connectivity, you get 1 USB USB 3.2 Gen 2x2 port, which is this USB Type-C port on the right here. You get an Intel i225V 2.5 gigabit Ethernet port here. Then you have the two connections for the Wi-Fi 6E antenna that's included with the motherboard, as well as your audio connections, which include gold-plated audio jacks, as well as one optical SPDIF out port. For internal connectivity, you have 6 SATA ports to connect your traditional drives. You also get a USB 3.2 Gen 2x2 Type-C header port right here, right on the motherboard. You also get 2 USB 3.2 Gen 1 header port right here. And finally, you get Thunderbolt support with this header here on the right side of the motherboard. But that's not all. The ASUS ROG Strix Z690-E gaming Wi-Fi motherboard also comes with 3 additional M.2 sockets on the motherboard itself. One of the sockets is going to be a PCIe 5.0 X4 socket, while the other 2 are going to be PCIe 4.0 sockets. So in total, you get 5 M.2 sockets, 3 on board with the motherboard, and an additional 2 M.2 sockets with this add-on ROG Hyper M.2 card. And what all this means is that you'll be able to install multiple high-speed NVMe SSDs without any issues on this motherboard.